Hello and welcome, my name's Ryan, I'm also known as RM2KDev. Now in this video we're going to be carrying on with our platformer tutorial. In the previous video we set up our level, we set up our player, we set up jumping, collisions, I think that's all we did. Well, we had the ramp collisions as well, and we also had some nice polish things, so your animations and the speed that the animations run out. In this video we're going to be dealing with double jump. Now double jump is a topic that everyone skips over, and I don't understand why. It's really simple to do. I have a very simple implementation of this, and I personally think that it works quite well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to add a timer, alarm 0. And I'm just going to add another event in here because, like I said, in the collisions you actually do need something in here to make this happen. So I'm just going to say make this happen. Oh, actually we'll call this double jump timer so it makes sense. Double jump timer, since that's what we're going to be using. Now we're going to jump back into our step, no, not our step event, sorry, our press up button. And in our first jump event, when we do our first jump, we need to say alarm 0 equals 1. Now what this does is this is just going to give us I think it's 1 frame, so it's 1/60th of a second because we've got 60 frames per second, and that's going to be the time that it takes before you can make your second jump. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a second script to this, and this is going to be called second jump. Now very simply, all we need to do in here is say if jumping, because if it's jumping is true, so if we've already done the first jump, that's going to be true, otherwise it'll be false, and alarm 0 is less than 0, so basically that alarm has ticked down, so it started at 1, it went to 0, and then it goes to -1. So if we're jumping and the alarm is less than 0, because as soon as we do our first jump that alarm gets set to 1, so it takes 1 frame before it goes down to 0, then we're just going to do the same code for jump. So we're just going to take this physics command here, and we're just going to say physics apply impulse in the x and y position at 0 at negative was, and we're just going to call this double jump. The next thing we need to do is we need to set jumping to false. Jumping equals false, obviously, because after we've performed our second jump we're no longer jumping. And the other thing that we need to do is no, actually that's it, that's all we need to do. So I think that's double jumping done. Very simple, guys. 1 jump, 2 jump, can't jump 3 times. So if you look at my command window, first jump, second jump, if I push the button 3 times, it doesn't happen again. So now we have double jump working in our game. We can get up to these places, we can get up this hill, we can climb up here. Very simple, guys. Double jump is not as hard as everyone makes it seem. So I don't really understand why no one does double jump in their platformer tutorials, because as you guys can see it's very simple to implement, and this actually has a really nice effect because we're using physics. The speed at which the player double jumps, if they double jump fast they're going to get a double sort of a bit more force in the upwards direction, but if they double jump slower they're going to get a less of an impact, less of an effect. Whereas compared to if they double jumped really fast, they get a bigger jump, and that's just inherent because of the physics. So that gives us a really nice, some really nice effects to work with there. So yeah, that's double jump basically done. This game is already becoming quite fun to play. The mechanics feel very good. It's got a very Super Meat Boy feel to it, so it's very responsive. And I mean, you guys can change these controls out for Xbox gamepad controls or PS4 gamepad controls, whatever you guys want to use. But it feels very responsive, and that's good for a platformer. And that's because we're using this Box 2D physics engine. We get inherent collisions, we get inherent events, and they're just very snappy. They work well. So the next thing we'll do, this is actually going to be quite funny. We're going to add a falling animation. Now I don't actually have a falling sprite for this character, so what I do is I actually edited the one that I got. So I'm just going to duplicate this sprite. We're just going to call this sprite player falling. There we go. And I'm just going to edit this. It's just going to be a quick little 2-frame fall. So I'm going to take image number 4 because that sort of looks the closest to something that would be falling. So that there, he looks a little bit like he's falling there. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take his arms off. Now, just forewarning, I'm a terrible pixel artist, guys, so don't quote me on how to draw things because it's just not going to happen. So we'll just take his arms off his body like that. I'm just going to put back some black pixels. If I use the shift key, I think it is, no, it's the control key, there we go, control key, put that black pixel back. And all I'm going to do is just going to add some, like, something like this going out of the top of his head in that direction. There we go, that'll do. How do I set my right? There we go. I set my right to transparent. It didn't work. I set my left to, let's try to replace. There we go. So I just basically, all I'm doing here at the moment is just going over these and sort of just making this arm look a little better, I think. There we go, just put that in there, put that there, put that there. And we'll just put another one, we'll just put something like this at the top of that one there. And obviously that's not right, I need to get rid of those pixels there. So now I'll just take my flood fill tool, and I'm just going to take that color, fill that in, take that color, fill that in, and then take that color. I'm just going to draw his arm, draw his hands back on. There we go. So now we've got his hands back on. We can erase these existing arms. I was just using those as like a reference for what the colors should be and how they sort of already looked. Okay, and that's the start of, actually, you know what I'll do? I'll circle that in black as well, because I think that'll look a bit better. Like I said, guys, I'm terrible at drawing and art and all those sort of things, so not the greatest pixel artist. In fact, not a pixel artist at all. So I don't usually do pixel art, but this is just for this tutorial. So there's the first arm. Let's copy the frame, and this time all we're going to do is just something very simple. I'm just going to take this. I'll take this entire top half. Actually, just take his whole head. Take everything that's up here using this select tool. There we go, and just shift it down and right by 1. And I showed this animation technique in one of the RPG tutorial series videos, and a lot of people were like, wow, that's a fantastic way of doing animations. So it's a very simple, very easy way of doing animations, and personally it works for me, so I'm just going to use it here. And then all you have to do is just come back and fix up some of those edges. So obviously some of these edges don't look right. The other thing I'll do is I'll just make his hand a little smaller now, so we can just get that, so that looks a little better. There we go. So now his hand changes shape a little bit, and there we go. We've got the basics of our falling animation. The other thing I'll do is I'll just move his leg over a little bit as well, because I think that the legs should probably change shape as well. So let's just move his leg down and right like that, and we'll fill back in those pixels. So grab your pencil tool, select the base color, and just fill that back in. There we go, just fill that one in back up there. Put the yellow back there like that. Maybe just do this. There we go, so that moves his legs a little bit now. And we'll just move that right leg as well, just to make it look a little more natural. And like I said, guys, I'm a terrible pixel artist, so don't quote me on any of these techniques, because I'm just trying to get it working, just to show you guys the idea here. There we go, so that moves his leg around. I think that's a good falling animation. If we slow that down to say 5 frames per second, it looks like he's falling. That'll do for now. So yeah, now we've got a falling animation. Go back into your player, jump into your step event, and all we're going to do is we're just going to add some very simple code in here, which is just going to do the same thing that this chunk of code here was doing, except the difference is if the y speed is greater than, say, 1.2, it's just a number I pulled out of my head, phy speed underscore y is greater than 1.2, then we're going to set the player's sprite, sprite index equals SPR player underscore falling. Now, you might be asking yourself, how does this work in conjunction with these left and right sprites? Well, because we handle the flipping inside of the left and right key press, this sprite will automatically flip itself. But because it's the last thing in the chain of events, so the first thing is we change it to running or standing, but if his speed is greater than 1.2, we change it to falling. So if he is falling, his sprite will always be the falling sprite. If he's not falling, it'll always be a running or a standing sprite. So the order actually matters. So what you'll see is that as we do a double jump, the sprite will now fall down. And I mean, that's not the greatest animation. His arms look a little bit weird, but you get the idea from this. So if we jump up here and then we do a really big jump down, you'll see we get this nice falling animation until we land on something, and then it stops. So that's falling animations, and it's also double jump. So that's the basis of the platformer game. Let's move on. We're going to do moving platforms now. So again, in that art pack that I've got, we have some sprites, this one here and this one here, to be precise. Bring those across. I'm just going to make another group. We're just going to call this platforms. I'm going to put those two in there. Let's just call this one here, let's call this SPR underscore platform underscore edge underscore L for left. We'll call this one here SPR underscore platform underscore center. Let's duplicate the left edge and we'll flip that as well. Call this one here sprite underscore platform underscore edge underscore R for right, and we'll just edit the sprite and we'll just apply a horizontal flip to that. Now the one thing we do need to do for all of these is make sure that their origin is not set to center. It's not center, it's top left, just like that. So the next thing we need to do is come to our objects, create a group, call this object underscore moving underscore platform. Sorry, not a group. We'll call this moving platforms. Inside of that we'll create the object, and we'll call that object underscore moving underscore platform. Now we give this the center sprite. Now the reason we give it the center sprite is because when we place it in the level, we're actually able to make it so that it moves left and right. I'm just going to place it over here so that we can see it easier. So, oh, not that. You follow the player. We need to actually place the moving platform in the world. And the cool thing is now, as we stretch this, the platform's actually going to, we're going to make it so that it adjusts itself so that it looks right when it does, when it renders inside of the game. So we've got a moving platform in our game. I'm going to move that down 1 pixel. Jump back into our object moving platform event. And the first thing we need to do is we need to parent this to the object collision. So this makes it something that we can collide with and something that we can jump off. So if I run the game at the moment, you'll see that it acts and responds just like a regular collision. Oh no, maybe not. Ah, sorry, it needs a physics representation as well. My bad. We need to go users physics. I'm going to set the shape to a box. It's going to have a density of 0.0. And all the other parameters stay the same. We just need to make sure that this shape here also represents the shape of the object itself. So I'm just going to zoom right in on that, and it's just going to come to there. So now what you'll see is this actually represents and plays and feels exactly like a collision event inside of our game. We can stand on it, we can jump off it, we can fall off of it. It basically just acts like a collision event inside of our game. Nothing different. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to add a create event. So inside of our create event, we'll just add another script, and we're just going to call this one here init moving platform. Now before we do any code, we need to create a path. So jump over here and create a path. Set your room background to be RM level test, and all I'm going to do from that top left corner, I'm going to say I want it to move to this position here. Now just remember that because we're working from the top left corner, that the sprite actually comes out 1, 2, 3, 4 more blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4 more blocks. The sprite will actually line up with this edge here, because the top left corner will end up here, and its width takes us to here. So the moving platform only needs to go this far in order for it to come from here all the way across to this next place over here. Tick that box, and now we've got a path. We're going to call this one here PTH platform. Now back inside of our moving platforms create event, we need to say my path equals path underscore start PTH underscore platform. Speed is going to be 1, end action is going to be 1, and absolute is going to be false. Now we do need to track some variables, and this is going to be so that we can actually move the player with the path. So we're just going to track the x position, so it's going to be last underscore x equals x, and last underscore y equals y. Now what you'll see when we start this is that the moving platform should now be moving. We can still collide with it, and the collision shape is going to move with us, but the platform is just going to move out from underneath us and we're just going to fall. And what you'll see here is that we've actually done something that GameMaker doesn't even allow you to do, and that's use a path with a physics object by using the inheritance, which is quite cool, I think. So the next thing we need to do is we need to say, what we'll do first is we'll make it look right. So in our moving platform event, underneath the draw action, so we're going to go into this event here, draw, we're going to create a script event, and we're just going to call this draw platform. Now what this is going to do, this is going to draw the platform correctly. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to draw the corners. So let's just go draw sprite, and we're going to say SPR platform edge L for left. It's going to be at subimage 0. It's going to be at x negative 32 because the sprite's 32 wide, and it's going to be at the Y position. So whatever position it is, it's just 32 pixels to the left. We're going to do the same thing for the right side, except this time it's going to be a little different. Instead of negative 32, we need to move it across to the width of the sprite. So sprite underscore width. And again, the Y position will be the same. And in here, we're just going to say draw self. Now, what sprite width is actually very cool. Sprite width will take the width of the sprite, and it will multiply it by the scale. So if it's this wide here, it's going to say 64 128. It's going to say that this sprite is 132 64. Yeah, it's going to say that this sprite width is 128, but this one sprite width is going to be 64, because there's two 32 blocks here. So sprite width is actually dynamic, and it will change on a per instance basis. So what you'll see is both of these platforms now move. We can jump up on both of them, but the thing is, they're not taking our player with them, and that's a problem, because that will happen, and then that will happen, and then your player will die. So something that, the reason why most people don't cover this is because it is not hard, but I think a lot of people find it hard to program this sort of thing, and that's getting the player to actually move with that platform. But just before we do that, I'm going to change the way that this draw self works so that it actually repeats the sprite out multiple times, and instead of looking stretched, so if you look at the top sprite and the bottom sprite, you'll see that that center sprite there actually looks stretched in comparison to the default sprite. What we actually want is we want to see multiple repetitions of the same sprite. So I'm just going to say for I equals 0, or I is less than image x scale, I plus plus. So image x scale is obviously going to be 2 or 3 or 4 based on the width. And then all I'm going to do is just say draw sprite index. It's going to be an image index, so if it was animated, it takes the animation with that. It's going to be at x position plus, and it's going to be I, so whatever the I is. So if I is 0, it's going to be 0, because 0 times by 32 is 0, so it's just going to be at the x position. If I is 1, it's going to be at I times 32, which is 32, so it's going to be at x position plus 32. And if I is 3, it's going to be at 3 times 32 plus x, which is going to take us all the way across a sprite and basically draw itself 3 or 4 times depending on how many times it exists. So now you'll see, instead of looking stretched, it just draws the sprite out multiple times for each position of that x scale. So finally, the most important part, and that's getting the player to actually track along with this, we need to add a collision event with object player. I'm going to drag some code in here, and it's just basically going to say dir x equals 1. Then we say if x is less than last x, dir x equals -1, and then after that we say last x equals x. So what this basically is doing is we're saying, to begin with, we want the player to be traveling in the right direction, so the direction of x is going to be 1. It's going to move at 1 pixel in the right direction. If the current x position is less than the last x position, right? So of the moving platform, if its current x position is less than the last x position, it must be moving left. It has to be. That's the only way that that can be true. So we set direction x to be -1, which means we want the player to be moving in the left direction. So after this calculation has been performed, we need to say last x equals x, because now that we've used these variables, we need to update that last x variable to be the current position, so that next time the player collides with this object, it can work out whether or not the platform is moving in the left or the right direction. The final thing we need to do is say object player.phy position x plus equals dir x. And what that's going to do for us is that's basically going to just say update the player's x position with the value of dir x. So when we're standing on the platform, or when we're colliding with the platform, you'll see that the oops, we got an error there. What was that? Last x doesn't exist. Last x, create event. Sorry, I've called them last underscore x. My bad. Last underscore x, last underscore x. There we go. So basically, when we now move on that platform, what you'll see is that when we touch the platform, our player gets stuck to it, and he starts moving left and right with that platform. We can also still move with the platform in our own right. Oh, I fell off. But yeah, basically that's how it works. So we're moving along with the platform. We can jump up. We can touch this platform, and this is inherent. This works with all platforms. So this can be you guys can update this to change this to be platform base, whatever you want it to be. We've got double jump, we've got moving platforms, we've got a very cool background. You can fall and land on that platform. And there we go, so we've got that nice little falling animation. So if you guys have some better sprites, it would be nice. The one thing to also see is that our falling animation is also based on our x speed. So you'll see if we're not moving to the left, our falling animation he doesn't have that like wave to him like he did when he was falling a lot harder. But if we're moving faster, you'll see he animates. So the falling animation is still based off of that x speed. So thank you guys for watching. This has been the Game Maker platform tutorial using the Box 2D physics engine. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this, please like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and share it. If you guys need any help, feel free to shoot me an inbox on YouTube, or even look up my website. It's www.rm2kdev.net, where you'll find a contact form. And yeah, definitely please share the video and like it. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Bye. Bye. Bye.